According to that, it's this.
But no,
I understand.
and that's the problem.
The Newton zoning of adjustments called a meeting at 7:03 PM. Jim, would you take attendance, please?
Mr. Prozac,
Here?
Mr. Hamel,
Present.
Mr. Sylvia,
Present.
Ms. McCarthy is here, she's just stepped out for a
Yep.
second. Ms. White,
Here, I can barely hear you. You have your mic on?
not yet.
Thank you.
And Ms. Reardon.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we have a preliminary hearing and a public hearing, just to go over some of the specs for the preliminary meeting to the board members. The questions are always to ask. This is not really digging into every nook and cranny, but trying to get a feel for all the paperwork is in, anything you think is missing, anything you think we need before the public meeting. I think that would cover it all. And with that, I will start the preliminary review of Mr.
Chairman,
Card.
did you want to appoint anybody?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Appoint Barbara White to replace Mr. Gibbs. Sorry about that. Mr. Card, who's going to come up and speak on your behalf? Okay. Okay.
Jeffery Card, 1 Wilders Grove Road. What would you like to know?
Is the mic on?
Can you
Check.
tilt it up?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, at least read off your comments here that you gave us. Do you have that piece of paper?
I do not.
You do not. Do we want to go without that? Would you like to read that out to everybody for the audience also? Here's my copy here.
Okay. As question 2, it says, as the nonconformity was discovered after the structure was substantially completed, we had an excavation done and footings poured, and then checking one final time with the building inspector prior to pouring the foundation walls, we discovered the discrepancy and how the violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law or bad faith, but resulted from a good faith error in measurement calculation. We sat down with an architect to plot our new house layout. That was when it was discovered that there were no dimensions for the structure on the surveyor's plot plan. I contacted the surveyor with this information. He sent over another copy of the plan. Showing dimensions, we went forward with the house layout on paper and had footings poured. The original plot plan approved by the ZBA was dated 9/11/2020, but a copy of the plot plan used to design the house is dated 3/11/2021. Question 3, the nonconformity does not constitute a nuisance. As agreed on our original approved application for a variance, the proposed house has been moved off the lot line by 5 feet. We're no longer encroaching and otherwise would show no real difference other than coming a little closer to the road, but no closer to the wetlands on the opposite side. Question 4, the cost of correction far outweighs any public benefit. The costs have been incurred for the excavating and pouring footings to match up to these dimensions. The original structure was very far off the road, and this move would be insignificant and cause no interference with other properties.
Thank you. Jim, would you read off exactly what the cards are looking for on the special exemption, please?
Actually, Mr. Cod just did.
Do you have it there, Jim?
That's what you just read.
Actually, I've got a first question.
Okay.
Is the agenda says they're looking for a special exception. The application says they're looking for an equitable waiver.
It's an equitable waiver.
Okay, so it's not a special exception. The agenda is mistake.
That's why it's a preliminary review.
Right, that's
yeah.
fine.
Well, anyway, the Jeffery Card of Newton, New Hampshire requests a special exemption in relief of Ordinance 11, non-conforming lots, structures, and uses under Section 3 expansion of non-conforming structure for their property at 1A Waters Grove. The property is referred to Tax Map 2, Block 3, and Lot 35-1.
But that should say equitable waiver, not
Yes.
not special exception.
Yes, yeah, I agree, yeah, okay. Any questions for the applicants, gentlemen?
Yes. What extent of the project's completed right now? Like, I keep hearing footings. Is it just the footing? Is it the foundation wall? Is it the structure?
It's just the footings.
So it's just the footings.
Okay.
When did the excavation start approximately? Like what month?
I would have to say, yeah, a year ago, December, the original house came down, and
So after the frost,
yeah, I mean,
2022?
yes.
Okay. And do you know the existing measurements of the footing center line to center line by any chance?
It's 26 by 28.
And do you know if that's center line to center line, that's inside of footing, inside of footing?
It is center line.
Okay. Do you know that the width of the footings? Like, are they 20-inch footings? Are they 24-inch, 22-inch?
I didn't measure those. I would say
Okay.
they're probably 22.
So currently on the site right now, just so I understand, is we have a 5-foot deep hole, perimeter dug with a concrete footing in it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Can I see that again?
Please do, okay, yeah, okay. Is everybody, I think there's some of the confusion that we have up here is what the amount of, every plot plan we're looking at is somewhat different. We're trying to get a feel for exactly what is happening over there on the dimensions. Like the two I'm looking at here has the proposed deck on it, and I don't think the deck is part of the project, right?
Not the addition.
It's not anymore, right, okay, yeah. So the one dated September 11th, 2020, I assume, is that what we think that, John, this one is the final one here?
No, that would be the
This the one
existing
before it's moved?
So I don't think we have the one,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
My question to Mr. Dodd is this plan. The numbers appear to be all the same. This plan, it shows the existing original building.
Correct. And the one that you just had me make copies of was the original plan that was submitted with shifting the building 5 feet off the property line.
But the original building,
Which is this one, you got the same one I have, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
That-
this-
Yes,
existing,
yes, he's holding the same one.
no, the one in your hand, yeah, Roger, I got.
Roger, he's holding the same one.
okay, that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, I thought he was holding this one.
that's okay.
That one does not have the building is not 26 by 28.
No,
Right.
that's right.
And what we approved was something that was exactly going to be the same size as the existing building.
Correct.
And
Excuse me, this is Barbara. Roger, could you move your mic or something? Because I'm
Where'd you
having a
put-
very
put
hard
it on,
time
Roger?
hearing you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I ended up taking it off when I went to get my scale out of my bag. That a Barbara?
Yes, that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
yes, so 27 by 21, is that what you have, Roger?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, all right, and that's what I was going off of.
That's on this one here,
That's on
yeah, okay.
this plan, this one, which is what I was using for reference.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
It's 21 on that one.
Correct.
So somehow or other, the building got bigger, which wasn't what we approved.
Correct. That's why we're back here.
So I guess I have, sorry, Roger.
Go.
So I have two things. First and foremost is we now have a different plan in here that now shows a deck, which if we bring this to public hearing, I don't feel confident that we'll be able to help you in the way that you're seeking help, if that makes sense, because it doesn't reflect what was originally approved. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I'd like to understand dimensionally, I'd like to confirm dimensionally that this corner,
But this is the existing now.
correct.
We're looking at, right.
I'd like to,
Which is gone. This is.
I understand.
Okay, I'm just.
But I'd like to confirm, because we have our 27.9, we have our 55.8, right?
Right.
Now, which one are you on? Okay, that's one again.
Yeah,
Good.
well, you can use either one. I mean,
Okay,
I
right.
feel like these are interchangeable.
Right.
But I would like to verify with my own eyes if this corner right here
Okay.
is where it should be.
Uh-huh.
I think if that corner is where it should be, we're really only talking about one footing that needs to change. It's not all 3 footings.
So, maybe of all of these plans, do we have a picture of where the footings currently are?
A physical photograph?
No. Which plan shows me where the footings are? Or are there none of them?
I'm assuming the largest drawing that you have.
This one that you submitted, the large one.
Which is this one here?
Which is not that one there, it would be the new one that we got.
The new one that got approved by the shoreline protection. The shoreline protection plan?
This one here.
10/28/22.
That must be it. Yeah. Have we reapplied to the shoreline to get their okay?
With the new dimensions. All right, so 26, 28. So if we're 5 feet off and we did this math earlier, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
44.8 as opposed to 49.7. And then we decided this was 5 feet. I mean, we're within a tenth of a foot.
So, well,
Here. So, again, we kind of went through this a little bit earlier. So we have 49.7. This is the one that,
okay, this is the approved plan.
correct,
Okay, 49.7
street.
from the street, okay.
39.8, 49.7, 7.8, close enough, within a tenth, right, for argument's sake. 39 plus 5,
40, that's 49.
Yeah.
This is 39.
8 and 7, we're within a tenth. Work with me, Roger.
I don't see,
I'm
I
getting
don't-
there.
I don't see what number
We
you're,
just started the journey.
I don't see what number you're pointing at.
Okay. Right here,
Okay, so that's the distance from the corner to the street.
which we have the corner of the house, the corner of the deck. So we're going to take this as our control. We're going to take our 39
Plus 5.
plus 5,
Okay, so that's 44.8.
44.8. We're going to take 28 minus 21, 7.
Okay,
44 plus 7 is 51. So we have a discrepancy of a couple feet.
no, there's more than that. There's got to be more than that. If this is,
I'm sorry, 26
that's 26.
to 21. So 5 is 10,
Yeah.
plus 39 is 49,
Right,
8,
that's the 49.
49, 7.
Yeah, right.
So-
So the numbers are right, except this post is in the wrong place.
Correct. And
This footing, but this
and
footing.
indicatively, this, and this are all in the wrong place. That being said,
No, actually, this one, I think, is in the right place.
yes, this, and this one are all in the wrong place.
No, this one, I think, may also be in the right place.
It can't be.
Sure, if this one's in the right place, it's 28 feet away from that one.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to be 28 feet. We're supposed to be
No,
27
It's
feet.
not square.
It's too hard to know what's going on down
yeah.
there.
It's not square.
Trust me, you don't want to know what's going on.
Okay.
No. So I guess my,
Take this,
right.
so the,
You're saying they didn't pour a square foundation?
I know.
right,
I don't.
the house is not supposed to be square.
Yeah.
For the public hearing, would it make it easier for you people if I had everything set to go up on the screen? And I
Yes.
will find a laser pointer and you can,
Yeah.
because quite honestly, the public is not seeing what you're,
That's why I had to get up.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a preliminary and we're kind
guess
of.
my
well, that's
point
why
is-
I asked for the public hearing if
Yes.
you,
Yes.
If we're only 1 foot off, width-wise.
Yep.
We'll call this width,
Yep,
right?
okay.
27 to
Trying to
28.
determine
If
whether
we're
we need
5
to-
feet off depth-wise, in theory, if this corner is correct, the only thing that should need to be re-poured is this footing right here,
Okay.
which would be 5 feet in.
In.
These two need to be put 5 feet in.
This point and this point needs to
Yeah,
be pulled
right.
5 feet this way, and that rectifies the situation.
Right.
It's not all the footings.
Right, yeah, because that one's at the
Because you
right
can
place, that
be-
one's in the right, so that one's at least in the right place or close enough to the right place. But those two are the ones.
But it's all dependent on what size footing that is. If it's a 20-inch footing and we have to pour a wall, it's an 8-inch, it's a 20-inch footing, 8-inch wall, right? So you're left with 12 inches, and you got to pull it. You're going to be on the edge of that footing, which you might have to pour another 6 inches on the inside of that footing. But my point is that you have at least 2 usable sides, maybe 3. Just for transparency. My apologies.
That's okay. Yeah, look, I think it looks like you had at least, like I said, at least two of them are fine. It's just the other two, most probably.
And if it's a 24-inch footing, it might be acceptable, depending on what the.
True. Right.
I
We don't
mean,
know.
It might still land.
Those two are off by 5 feet. Those were-
Yeah. So we know that front, the roadside, we'll
Right.
call it, the street side footing definitely needs to be adjusted.
Right.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Glenn Dingman is going to represent us. We don't really know what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, we kind of wish he was here.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel great about.
But I think that in terms of my concern when I first looked at this a couple of days ago was I didn't have all the papers I needed. I think now we do have all of the papers that we need. I mean, basically, we've got the original layout.
Right, yep.
We've got the original approved plan. We've got the plan of where the things are. And basically, these two we don't need.
Right, yep.
We get some extra, which isn't usual, but
What?
I'll take extra.
So, but I think that we've got all of the information. And I guess the only other question that I would have is if you're asking for an equitable waiver, that definitely is not going to include the deck. No, it would just be a matter of allowing you to keep the footings and add some square footage to your house. But you could ask for a variance for the deck, though often in that area we have been very reluctant to allow people to make situations worse than what they are. And I mean, your original plan was to make something a lot better than what it was. And we sort of, you know.
We did have a deck on the back years ago. I just forgot. I should have pulled the whatever pictures we may have.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go right ahead, John.
I'd like to have another preliminary.
I was just going to ask the same, and let Barbara have who she needs to
Yeah,
talk.
I mean, I feel terrible that
I do too.
you guys aren't as prepared as you should be. And I understand you're probably not super familiar with this, and if you're gonna have these guys come and help you out, you know, at least you have some information to say, this is what we need, this is what they're gonna ask. And this will be online, so he can even go online and see where we're
Speak the
going with this,
language,
so
yeah.
we can have a better understanding.
Right.
I just don't, I think that's probably our best move.
I think it's best for you. You know, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. You don't speak the language that these people speak.
Yeah.
No
And
offense to the engineers in the room.
I think the other thing is, I mean, I know I'd like to go out and visit. I don't know if anybody else wants to see it. I'd like to put my eyes and my tape measure on it and see what's going on. And it might even be good to see if Mr. Donovan can be,
Available, yeah.
or Sam, whoever. Do you know who went out and inspected it? Was it Sam? Was it Bob?
I never saw anyone out there.
Okay,
No, we came to the town hall to
okay.
get the go-ahead because
Yeah.
we're not
We just
getting the
wanted to make
same
sure
answer
everything was-
twice.
Going the way it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think
So-
we
so-
can probably reach out to the building. I mean, I see Bob,
Yeah.
unfortunately, more than I
So
want
what
to.
would we like to do, people? Postpone the preliminary till next month? Is there anything else we need?
No, I think, you know, paperwork-wise, I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
If John wants to go and take a look at it, that you know,
I did a
work fine.
drive-by already, but I didn't go on the property and take measurements or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, if you guys are okay with that. I'd just like to have a better understanding of,
So, I mean,
you know, what our options are.
A site walk?
A site walk,
yeah,
yes.
that's
Yeah.
what he's talking about.
Okay. Is there anybody else interested in the site walk?
I went on my own, so I'm good.
I mean, if there is a site walk, I'll show up.
I will also, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really feel like I absolutely need one,
Yeah.
but I'll show up if there is
Okay,
one.
all right, yeah.
I'd like to go.
Pardon me?
I'd like to go.
Okay,
more than
here we
welcome.
go.
'Cause I only
It's a
know
field
what
trip.
So the only other
See if Martha will
issue,
It's
Maybe
okay,
so.
Barbara. We'll get this.
Barbara, do you have any comments, Barbara? Or would you be interested in a site walk with us?
It depends on when it is, and
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if Mr. Dingman was going to do like another of this large plan that I see, because I think that deck that's on there, that proposed deck, I think it's too close to the water. So I
Yeah,
think
and-
whatever maybe, yeah, I think maybe you need a clean copy without the deck that's not allowed.
I could,
She wants a clean copy without the deck
Okay.
to be submitted.
yes.
So I think what you guys should do is reach out to Mr. Dingman, encourage him to watch this so he has all the information that he needs to come to the pre-hearing that we're gonna.
Or he can reach out to.
And likewise, Jim can direct him in the proper direction.
we're looking
I've
for a
worked
plan.
with Mr. Dingman.
I'm sorry, what, Jim?
I said I've worked with Mr. Dingman
Oh,
before.
you have, okay, all right.
So, and we can kind of get this reeled in a little bit better.
For next month?
Yeah.
So
So,
the only issue I've got with that is I start to get really concerned about our 90-day limit. So as long as I want to put on the record that they're encouraging or agreeing to the continuance so that we don't run into time problems.
They can't do that until you're
Public,
towards the end. You
Well,
can't,
'cause
you can't
it-
sort of bump it up at the beginning and say, we're going to extend it out.
Right.
okay,
You have to,
okay.
okay.
however, the application was received on December 22nd.
Oh, okay, so we're not in bad shape then. Okay.
We're in the
Good.
range, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just
I'm
have a
sorry,
quick
go
question. Barbara, so the deck that is showing up now, was there before? At your house before?
There was one, but when the house was taken down, that was already gone.
Okay, I see. Okay.
So some of the pictures will show.
Because I thought you had a deck, from what I remember.
There's a jet on one of the pictures. But I'm not sure we have a full photo of the back of the house.
So when you talk to your engineer, we need to talk about how this deck, like Roger just said, is fitting into this. Or is it not going to fit into this at
There
all?
shouldn't be a deck, correct?
It shouldn't be in there,
Right,
because that's not what we approved.
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to get it
The
clear.
deck was not on any of the earlier plans.
Right.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I mean.
I just want to be
Is
clear.
this-
I mean,
deck on this
if
one?
they wanted
This one
to
does,
put a
yes.
deck
That's
on
the older
now.
one.
This is, is that the old one, or is that a new one?
Yeah.
This is the new
know.
I
one.
mean, that
This
still
is the
shows
old
the
one.
deck. Does it still show the deck on there?
This is the one this is the one that was approved.
Okay, all right.
This is the one with
I'm
the.
going to separate them.
Pardon me?
Yes,
No,
that,
we have to, Jim.
now, if they want to pursue getting a deck, they would have to put in a different
Back.
kind of application
Yes.
for a variance.
That's why, yes.
Which, you know, I'm not prejudging anything,
Right.
but in this area, we have been very reluctant
Exactly.
to do those kinds of
And that's
things.
why I wanted to bring it up to make it clear, so that you don't end up thinking it's going to be okay, and it's not, because it's not what we approved before. So, because again, this is new territory. Anything about taxes, she knows. But building is a whole nother story.
That it? Would someone like to make a motion that we move the card preliminary to next month, which was, I'm not sure of the date,
February 1st.
February 4th?
First.
Excuse me.
I'll motion to postpone the preliminary for the cars, February 1st, 2023.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right,
It's roll call.
Uh,
hold it, she's
Roll
voting.
call.
on
Mr.
it.
Sylvia?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
All right,
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
you're gonna make a motion to have a site walk?
Now, on the issue of the site walk,
Yeah, right. Does anybody have a preference on a time?
Well, if you want Mr. Donovan there, it's got to be a Saturday.
Okay.
Well, do we want Mr. Donovan there? Do we want Mr. Zanini there? I guess is the bigger question.
Yeah.
I think for myself, and I'm just speaking for myself, I just want to put eyes and do some measurements so I understand what's on the plans and
I
what's in the field. I think looping the building inspector in for at least the preliminary hearing to understand
Sure.
his aspect is definitely necessary.
And I advise against any one board member going out with a tape measure.
Fair enough?
In the law, there is a site walk which allows you to go. It is a posted meeting. There are no decisions, there are no discussions of particulars. It is for you to,
Site.
literally, if you want,
Measure.
you and Mr. Hamill can run a tape measure.
Right.
Well, I was under the impression of we were
Right.
there was at least 4 of us going.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that has to be posted and what have you.
Right.
Saturday mornings are the best.
Okay.
You guys, however, have to choose a,
Choose it. Time-wise, people?
If you're
9
talk-
o'clock in the
If you're
morning,
talking
10.
Saturday, yeah,
I don't think it has to be posted, Jim. Could we make this Saturday? I don't think we have enough time.
you have enough time
Okay.
for me to post it for Saturday.
I could do 10:30 on Saturday or after.
so we're talking about
10:30 is good for me.
the 7th,
Yeah, this Saturday, correct.
Saturday,
Ms.
okay.
White was just asking a question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Barbara, go ahead.
Oh, no, I said,
she
I'm
said it was
sorry.
good.
I said 10:30 is fine for me, Saturday.
Okay. 11 a.m. for everyone? Is that, I'm just trying to pick a time that, you said 10:30.
Yeah, I could do 10:30 or after.
Okay, all right.
I have
Trish?
basketball.
I'm teaching on weekends, so you guys will be without me.
Ms. Reardon?
I don't really have a good time on Saturdays. I have to go to that class, but anytime, I'll go.
11 o'clock then? Roger?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Ms. White?
11's fine.
Okay. 11 o'clock, will everybody know how to get there?
I have the address.
Tommy?
I have the
You
address.
go down Wilders Grove Road and
Yeah.
look for a big hole in the ground.
You won't miss that.
Who
Won't miss it.
moved to have the site walk at 11 o'clock on January
7th.
7th.
Somebody want to make a motion?
A motion to have a site walk at 1A Wilders Grove Road at 11 a.m. on January 7th, 2023.
I'll second that. This is Barbara.
Okay. Roll call vote, Jim?
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Hamill,
All right,
Mr. Kozak,
Aye?
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
11 a.m. Well, we'll see you at your house Saturday.
Okay.
Or at least we'll be there. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That closes the preliminary hearing for the Card family. Okay.
That's in there.
Next, we have a public hearing, 125 Development. Roger, are you recusing yourself?
yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Hamill is going to recuse himself. I'd like to appoint Ms. Reardon as a voting member. And it is 8:40 PM, 7:40 PM.
7:40.
Okay. Continuation 125 Development, New Hampshire, Corp, Plaistow, New Hampshire. Request for a public hearing for relief from Section 25, specifically to allow building activity within 200-foot setback to a residential A for the proposal of 4-building condominium site off South Main Street in Newton, New Hampshire. The property referred to as Tax Map 14, Block 1, Lot 27-3. The applicant has withdrawn the 4 variance applications under Section 27, specifically to allow building activity within 50 feet of poorly drained soil. All right. Yeah, you're already up there. Invite the applicant for a overview.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We've been here a few times on this project. We are here tonight requesting variances for the construction of Phase 2 of the Southern New Hampshire Industrial Park. If I didn't say before, my name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones Beach Engineers for the applicant. All the variances are Article Roman numeral 25, Section 1 of the zoning ordinance, which requires a 20-foot structural setback to an otherwise zoned property. It's the opinion of the applicant that the purpose of this ordinance is to prevent undue impact from a project in the light industrial commercial zone to an otherwise zoned property. That being the intent, most of the criteria comes down to will granting the variance cause an undue adverse impact to the abutting property. So you're going to hear a lot of that with regards to the arguments for the criteria. We did discuss this before, so I propose that we go through each variance individually. We did provide a letter, actually a whole booklet of the variance criteria and how we meet the criteria, and I can go through this as it pleases the board. And then I would suggest that the board discuss and vote on each variance prior to moving on to the next one. So I have a couple of boards up that show the overall, you kind of get an idea of the overall project, but then on ZBA 2, kind of give you a closer view of it, and we can go through each sheet as we discussed previously.
So we're going to start off with ZBA 3.
ZBA 3 is the one we'll look at to begin with.
I just wanted to point this out to let me give this to any of the residents that would like to look at what we're doing here. He's going to start off with ZBA 3 and then continue. These are the numbers that represent, is number 1, whatever that is, the impact, okay? And the variance looking for. Most of them, 99% of them affect the road only. But you can follow along if you'd like to, you know. Yeah, you're way over here, yeah, that's why. This is, you know, the road, this is the building, yeah. Right, the building with the heck, what is whatever there is. I mean, there's several different companies in that, okay? Just so you know. And if you want to look to the next page, we get through all those. Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
So I propose we start with what we call drive impact number 1, which is for the proposed industrial driveway or road. So it's for the construction of an access road which abuts otherwise zoned properties. The variance distance requested is 200 feet. If you look on the left-hand side of ZBA 3, you can see that we actually have to provide access to our 2 abutting properties. Yeah. So that's why we are asking for a 200-foot variance. Would you like to go through the criteria, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I kind of just thought we were ahead of ourselves. I was hoping that after your comments, maybe, is there any public comments? Is there everything? Any questions at this time? No? Okay. All right. Continue on. Okay.
So for drive impact number 1, the first criteria is that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because the proposed location of the proposed entrance road is limited by the existing frontage. The road has been designed to limit the impact to environmentally sensitive areas to the degree practicable. It will not adversely impact abutting properties, nor will it create a public safety issue, and is therefore not contrary to the public interest. Criteria number 2 is if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the spirit of the ordinance is to prevent undue impact on abutting otherwise zoned properties. The spirit of the ordinance is not to prevent access to a parcel from the legal frontage, and therefore the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. In addition, the proposed roadway has been planned for greater than 20 years. Therefore, any impact would have been anticipated and is therefore not undue in our opinion. Number 3 is that the granting of the variance would do substantial justice because that granting the variance would allow the access to the industrial park to be located within its frontage with Route 108, therefore doing substantial justice. Number 4 is if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished because And our response is that the access has been intended for the proposed location for greater than 20 years. The access to Route 108 was deeded specifically for this purpose. The lots directly abutting the access are commercially zoned. The abutting lots have driveways located very close, if not directly adjacent to the property line, and have not diminished the value of the adjacent property. For the reasons listed, we believe the granting the variance request, granting the requested variance will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. Number 5 is the unnecessary hardship criteria. A is owning to special conditions of the property that diminish it from other properties in the area. Denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because I is that no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, because the intent of the ordinance is to limit the impact, visual and otherwise, to the abutting otherwise zoned properties. We believe this goal is accomplished by maintaining a 50-foot vegetated buffer and a 200-foot setback for buildings. The subject property access to Route 108, which is also the only property frontage, is a narrow strip, which is as narrow as 50 foot in width. Strict enforcement of the ordinance would prevent the installation of the entrance road, Industrial Way, within the planned access to Route 108. This would result in no fair or substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance and the specific application on this property. And II is that the proposed use is a reasonable one because the proposed structure for which we are requesting a variance is the entrance road to the industrial park through the existing frontage, which we believe is a reasonable use.
Jim, could you explain the procedure and call the criteria then propose a vote?
I would honestly suggest that you allow Mr. Guyer to
Continue on.
read all of his responses.
Okay.
Because while the board determined that each application would be voted on separately, this was going to be held in one public hearing.
Okay.
So if you review the 20 variance responses first, then open it for public comment, then I will call each criteria in accordance and in the order that it is on the sheets.
Okay.
That will be probably the least time
Okay,
consuming.
so let him continue on.
Because I'm assuming that everybody has read through these at least once, if not twice or 3 times.
Yeah, and if the board wishes not to go through each one of these and I read them off, then that's fine with me, because if you have read them and you agree, or you can then discuss each of the criteria, you're going to have to vote on each criteria for each variance anyway. So, I mean, I would rather not read them, but that's up to the board.
How do the board members feel?
What's the implications of not reading them, Jim? Is probably the first
They have
question.
been available on the website. I will be reading the actual criteria when I call them. However, and I made sure I printed it out large enough so that I can read if somebody wants to know the applicant's response to each criteria. This has all been available online now for quite some time.
Quite a while.
And
You can, in other towns, if you agree with the criteria, our response to the criteria, you can indicate as such as your approval. And say, on number 1, you could say, we agree with the criteria as presented, and vote on that, or you can read through it.
What do you think, Jim? What's the best route for this?
in order to be fair and equitable, it's a process that the ZBA has put in place and has been utilizing for some time now, and that is to have your AA read the individual criteria for each application.
Okay. And then vote.
And take the notes
Okay.
pertaining thereto.
Okay.
You have dispensed in the past with reading all of the responses when it's more than one application for a lot. You always have in the past had the public hearing on the project in toto versus the individual However, somebody from the public could stand up and say, out of 20 applications, we're fine with everything but number, I'm picking numbers out, number 11 and number 19. That gets noted in the minutes and what have you.
Okay.
And that might sway you or convince you otherwise. But rather than, I mean, you're talking about reading through roughly 60 pages of text
Okay.
multiple times this evening.
Right.
That's up to you if you want them read over and over again. And a lot of them are very similar.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Was there a question or somebody had? Okay. So we're going to, we'll continue on.
Mr. Chairman, can I make
Oh, yes.
make an observation?
Yeah.
First of all, you should not vote on anything until after you close the public hearing. You should take in all of
Take it
the
all, okay.
evidence on
Deliberation.
everything,
Yeah.
then close the public hearing, and then go into deliberation. So you you have to sort of take all of the evidence in, close the public hearing before you start to vote on anything.
Thank you.
I would suggest, in the interest of time, and because all of these are sort of the same, that rather than reading all of the criteria, he might go in and give a small description
notes.
of each variance you're looking for without going through the whole thing, but not, not just say, okay, I'm done.
we've never done
Sort
this
of
before
Go
like
through and
this.
give a very brief description of each one and why.
Get a feel what we're doing. This is the first time we've ever, at least that I know of, encountered the way that we're doing this, with all these variances completely,
Yeah, I think if
You
Jim's
have
going
done
to read the
multiple variances
criteria.
before,
Yeah.
but you've always closed the public hearing
Yes,
after you've
that's
taken
correct.
input,
Yeah.
deliberated, and then
Yep.
I did, however, supply everybody with a score sheet.
Yep, exactly.
It's multi-pages.
Yep.
It lists it lists all 20 criteria, sorry, all 20 variances.
It looks like
With
this.
When did I get that?
like
Your
this.
package from last month.
Yep. I already filled mine out.
You can fill it out while you're doing it. You don't have to fill it out. You may have your own opinions.
Yep.
I don't know, Jim, I don't know. We just went through my stack of papers, I didn't see that there, unless you told me to throw it out.
Yeah, it was with last month's, I think.
Would you like me to describe the next variance request, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Go there?
Yeah, I think the cliff notes are probably the best way to go,
Yeah.
especially seeing how
Yes.
Jim's gonna
Yep.
kind of pour through them all.
So the next one to look at is what we call structural impact number 1.
Okay.
It is located basically in the center of C3. It's for a proposed retaining wall. Obviously, the retaining wall is in support of the existing roadway so that we do not have to grade onto adjacent property. The requested variance distance is 195 feet.
Okay. Yep. No issue. Yep. Another structural impact, number 2.
Structural impact number 2, I'm sorry, is an additional retaining wall. It's on the other side of the roadway.
Yep.
Yep.
Which makes sense. Yep.
It is also for the correct grading of the proposed industrial way and prevents grading onto the abutting property. Structural impact number 4
There's 4 in.
is for a stop sign. So the stop sign is located at the intersection of 108
Yeah.
and Industrial Way. Structural impact number 5 is located just to the right of the stop sign. It is for the sign for the industrial park. And if you've been out to Puzzle Lane, they have a small wall and a sign. That's what this is proposed to be. The distance, the variance requested for number 5 is 197 feet, 10 and a half inches. Structural impact number 6
6 that.
is for the guardrail. It's on the
Yeah.
lower part of property.
The 6 and 7 either side, yeah, which makes sense.
Because of the slopes on the roadway, we need to protect people, so that's what the intent of the guardrail is for. Structural impact number 7 is on the opposite side of the roadway, and that is the guardrail on the other side.
There's no more wetlands.
Right.
We're going to ZBA 4?
That's, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted, just for the public, I just wanted.
Oh, yes.
Just the guy I should explain, they have them listed as they appear on the sheets versus specifically your order. So structural impact number 3 doesn't show up until page 8.
Right.
Structural impact number 3 actually shows up on page ZBA 4, which
Right.
is sheet
Okay.
Yeah.
6 or 5.
There was 2 that had, one that had to be shifted later into the packet.
Okay.
But
Where is number?
So if you go to ZBA 4, and I'll change the sheet here. So this sheet also shows structural impacts 2, 6, and 7. They're just continuations of the retaining wall and the 2 guardrails. Number 3 is another retaining wall. It's adjacent to the wetlands. Right here.
Yep.
And the intent is also to hold up the proposed industrial way and to prevent any impact into the wetland. That's the only new variance requested on sheet ZBA 4.
Yep.
ZBA 5,
ZBA 5.
Page 6 and 7.
Oh, that's right. That's right, okay.
please stop me if you guys have questions. The first one I want to look at is actually structural impact number 8, which is the guardrail on the south side of the road along the
This is
curb.
numbers. Oh, 8, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Dotted line there.
Okay.
And that's to try to keep us out of the steeper slopes associated with the wetland area. And then we have, starting to the drainage impacts, which are the impacts associated with the stormwater features. The first one is drainage impact number 1, which is for the pipe out of infiltration basin number 3, which is located right here.
Yep.
And this is subterranean, correct?
Yes, so the culvert is underground. And the variance we request for that is 119 feet and 1/4 inch. Drain impact number 2 is the outlet structure or the catch basin manhole associated with the infiltration basin. It's at the end of the pipe.
Yep.
And for that, we request a variance of 117 feet and 3/4 inch. And then the last drainage impact on this sheet is drainage impact number 3, which is the pipe that crosses Industrial Way.
Yep. Right.
And for that, we request a variance of 143 feet, 7 inches. So going on to ZBA 6, if there's no questions.
Yep.
Thanks for keeping this thing flat. Would you do this underneath your pillow?
We were able to shift all the road and everything associated with the road out of the 200-foot structural setback, so all the impacts on ZBA 6 are drainage impacts. We have drainage impact number 4, which is the pipe that enters, that crosses Industrial Way and enters the forebay, which is
See anything about you?
Yep. Up in the, yep.
drainage impact number 5, which is the outlet structure from our infiltration basin, basically a catch basin, manhole again. And then drainage impact number 6, which is the pipe that comes out of infiltration basin number 2. And it's connected to the outlet structure for drainage impact number 5. And the last one on this sheet is drainage impact number 7, which is the pipe that crosses Industrial Way on the right-hand side of the sheet.
Yep.
Well, they're putting some money into this road, huh? Good. Boy. Good.
Going on to, oh, sorry.
Sorry, that's all right.
It's number 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me 1 minute to catch up. I think we're good. I just want to. So I just, and again, this is probably just more, it's a 200-foot setback for drainage impact 3 on CBA 5.
Yes.
Yeah, your numbers are only off, are off a little bit, so just check that one out. It's only 2 inches difference. It was one of those OCD things that was bothering me a bit. 7.
Oh, so the 56.5, and you're saying the 56.5 and the 143.7 don't add up to 200?
Right? Am I wrong on that, or am I just looking at too many numbers and having
No, that's correct.
somebody smelling? I don't
So-
smell burnt toast. So
143
again,
and 56 is 199, and 7 and 5 are 12.
all right, so we got it. We're good. We're 200.
You got it.
It's too many numbers. I thought it was me, and that's why I said, bear with me for a second while I sort this out and reset my brain a little bit. Thank you.
Excuse me, has anybody had any questions on anything as we keep going?
No?
Okay.
Good so far.
Barbara?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
Excuse
the
me.
next sheet is ZBA 7.
Whoops, sorry, John.
Throwing stuff at me.
ZBA 7 has 2 drainage impacts. We have drainage impact number 8, which is the outlet structure or catch basin from infiltration basin number 1.
Yep.
And drainage impact number 9 is the pipe out of infiltration basin number 1 connected to the drainage impact number 8. Moving on.
Good.
So on ZBA number 8, we have 2 drainage impacts as well. Drainage impact number 10 is the outlet structure of infiltration basin number 4. Located right here in the corner of the infiltration basin. And drainage impact number 11, which is the pipe out of the infiltration basin number 4.
Yep.
And there's nothing here at the wetlands.
And the remaining sheets are superfluous now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wetlands, okay. Public, any comments from the public? Okay,
No, I have no comments, thank you.
thank you.
Any public online?
Ms. Jeffries and Mr. McDonough.
Are there any comments from anybody that's on Zoom?
Nobody's
Nobody's raising their hand.
Okay.
Speak now, forever hold it.
Well, if there's no questions from the floor or whatever, we're going to close the public hearing. And we'll go into deliberation. Board members, what's everybody's feeling about what we've just gone through?
I like
Anybody
what I
see any serious issues?
I thought it was well done. I like what I saw. I like the retaining walls, the wetland protection.
Yeah, yeah. Ms. Reardon, do you have any comments?
I don't have any questions about it.
Okay,
I think I asked them all last time.
thank you. Ms. White, do you have any comments?
No, I do not. I will, again, I'll say the same thing that Trish said, that this was presented very well and explained very well in the applications.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. John, do you have any questions?
I do not.
No.
I think all the information was there and concise and coherent.
Yeah, I think the presentation was very well, and I think the documentation to be able to walk through all the numbers associated with the variances, which was a great way to look at it.
And I think the other part of it is, it's the structural setbacks that we're looking at aren't typical structural setbacks.
Right.
In my opinion.
I agree.
I'm not looking at a building close
Right.
to another building, and I'm looking at drainage, which is needed
Yes.
because we have the watershed
Protects the
from the
land,
building.
signage, yeah, I agree completely. And I have to say, I think it helped that we had this worksheet, because I was able to, sit down on my living room floor, spread out and take notes and use your worksheet. I really liked it.
Get used to it.
Thank you. No additional comments or whatever before we go and vote? Ms. White, you all through with the comments?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you as far as the voting goes. Give them an idea of how we've set it up, please. Yeah.
I propose that what I will do is I will read in the order that you see them on your sheet, starting with drive impact 1, the 5 criteria, at the end of which somebody needs to make a statement of fact, and then you can vote to grant with condition or deny that variance. And we'll just move straight along. The only difference on my list from the way they were presented is that structural impact number 3 comes out of order because that's on sheet 4. So we will go drive impact 1, structural impact 1, structural impact 2, structural impact 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 3 comes in. But I will tell you which page in case people want to turn their large sheets.
Yeah, hang on one second, Jim. We're going to get our sheet
And
out.
I have a whole tabbed stack of pages here
CBA.
by criteria. So I will read actually technically 6 criteria, 5 is divided in 2 parts, or 1 variance at a time, rather than going down and going through, okay, number 1 for each of the different requests. It just keeps it cleaner, I believe. So let me know when you're ready.
We're ready, yes.
Okay, on drive impact number 1, this is on ZBA 3. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy, how say you?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. So that takes care.
So the criteria was met. Does anybody have any statement of fact regarding the criteria?
I would say that it keeps in theme with the 2 adjacent properties that are already in existence.
criteria 2 for the same issue. That's the drive impact. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia?
I'm sorry, this is drive impact or structural impact?
Drive impact.
Agreed.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. That's the other side, right? The other, number 3 was. This is the first. 2 and 3.
On ZBA 3, drive impact number 1, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Agree.
Anybody have a statement of fact of why this would do substantial justice?
Allows access into an otherwise difficult piece of property to access.
Drive impact number 1, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. White?
This is weird.
I agree, they would not be diminished.
We're doing the
Ms.
5
Reardon?
criteria for one.
I agree, they wouldn't be diminished.
Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Does anybody wish to make a statement of fact?
Well, just that the 200 feet would not have any really serious effect on any commercial or residential in the area.
Still on drive impact 1. Owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because,
And
1,
that's the-
no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provisions to the property. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Would anybody like to make a statement of fact?
This is already an existing access road. This is now just going to turn it into an officially paved road.
Can
Right.
you repeat that?
This is already being used, this parcel right here is already being used as an access, as a dirt road. So by granting this variance, it makes it a safer, real road as opposed to just a dirt road.
Saying it's safer as a paved road?
In theory. I feel safer driving on a paved road as opposed to a dirt road, personally.
Subsection 2, the proposed use is reasonable 1. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Would anybody care to make any statement? You don't have to,
Why
as
not?
long as I have a couple of statements of facts for each variance. We're good. You don't have to keep coming up with something. However, if anybody wanted to make a statement of fact regarding this,
I'm with you, Jim. I think we all are. Yeah, we're following you. Thank you.
in that case, Mr. Chairman, the 5 criteria were met on variance number 1
Someone like to make a motion that we approve variance number 1?
I'll motion to approve variance number 1, drive impact number 1 per the plan.
I'll second that. This is Barbara.
I will use the statements of fact that were given with the criteria to support that decision.
Do a roll call vote, Jim?
Ms. White,
Aye.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mrs. Reardon,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Moving along, structural impact number 1, which is also on ZBA 3. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest.
This is a wall here, right?
Retaining wall.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Yes. I agree.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. The way that this is presented on the plans, the structure to hold the dirt and the road back into position, I think is a good positive.
Criteria 2, if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
This is the other side of the wall.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
This is a necessary means to allow this road to be built, so I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy, do you agree?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree. I don't think that a retaining wall that abuts another commercial property to allow for a road to access another commercial property would negatively impact.
Very good.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Unnecessary hardship. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. Do you agree, Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
And the proposed use is reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. Without this road, it would really cut off the development of the continuation of these projects.
Mr. Chairman, the criteria were met.
Would someone like to make a motion to,
I'll motion to accept, to vote on structural impact one on per ZBA 3.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Take a roll call vote, Jim.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Ms. Reardon?
Aye.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
We all done on this page?
No, not even close.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
One question at this point. Do you need me to reread the criteria or just give you sort of a synopsis of it from here on out? I've been,
Yeah, the synopsis would be great, Jim, I
Okay.
think, yes. We can move this thing along.
okay. So we're now moving along to structural impact number 2.
Okay.
First criteria regarding public interest.
On the side of the road.
Okay.
Ms. McCarthy, do you agree?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
That's the structure.
I agree.
It's the other side.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree. Again, this is a necessary means to construct the road.
Yeah.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy?
Yes, again, retaining walls, this makes sense. It protects our land, so that's a yes.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 4, surrounding property values would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. No real surrounding residential, and there is commercial up the street. Should have no impact.
Criteria 5, that is, no fair and substantial relationship exists. Ms. McCarthy?
Aye, sorry.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
And 5.2, which is the proposed is a reasonable one. The proposal is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Mr. Chair, the criteria were met
Okay.
for application number 3.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion to accept it for application number 3?
Make a motion to vote on structural impact number 2 per ZBA 3, the submitted plans.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Jim?
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Reardon?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
structural impact number 4. Criteria 1, contrary to the public interest. That it's not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy?
That's tough.
I agree. It's a stop sign. It's probably necessary, so I agree.
I'm trying to think of how to rephrase that so that it's a...
Signage. I agree with signage.
Signage, okay.
How about that?
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree, because it's necessary for public safety.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
The variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
The surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree. There's plenty of stop signs in town that do not diminish other properties.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. Very good, Sarah. John.
Criteria 4, regarding the fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of the ordinance and the specific application. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I'm sorry, which one are we on?
This is criteria number
Number 4.
4, and we
Okay.
are on structural impact number 4.
4 and 4.
Yeah.
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Okay.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree. Where was number 4? What the hell was it?
Criteria number 5,
And 5
the
is-
proposal is
Okay, no, no, to sign, okay.
my apologies. Oh. For some reason I have a page that somehow ended up out of order.
I think you skipped 3.
Excuse me?
He
I think
did.
you skipped criteria 3.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's why.
I thought we
I
did
thought I
4
was on the
twice.
wrong-
Yeah.
I figured he'd catch it eventually.
Not really, because I have to call 100 different criteria this
Okay.
So criteria 3 was the would do substantial justice. Yeah. Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Ms. McCarthy,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
And I've already called criteria 5.1, so criteria 5.2 is the proposed use is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, all 5 criteria were met.
So I'd like to motion to vote on structural impact number 4 per ZBA 3.
Roll call vote, Jim?
Who is the second?
Oh, I didn't hear.
Second.
I'm sorry.
second that.
Sorry. Yeah.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Reardon?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, application number 4 was granted.
Thank you.
Structural impact number 5, criteria 1, that it would not be contrary to the public interest.
Sign for the,
Okay.
Ms. McCarthy?
I agree, it's a park sign, so signage is good.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 2, regarding the spirit of the ordinance being met. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
This is a commercial property with other commercial properties abutting it. Signage just makes sense. So for that reason, I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria 4, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Criteria number 5.1. Regarding the special relationship. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
And criteria 5.2, the purpose is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy?
I agree.
Ms. Reardon?
I agree.
Ms. White?
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia?
It's a commercial property. It's entitled to have signage out front directing the public, as well as the safety officers within the town of what is down that road. So for that reason, I agree.
Mr. Kozak?
I agree.
Mr. Chair, structural impact number 5 criteria were met.
I'll motion to take a vote on structural impact number 5 per ZBA 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Jim, a roll call vote, please.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Reardon?
Aye.
That's 6 and 7.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye. Is that the railing? That's right. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the application for structural impact
Number 5.
number 5 was granted.
Okay.
Moving on to structural impact number 6. Criteria 1, that it is not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye, this is a guardrail, it's all about public safety, so I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. I think Trish said it all, the safety precaution. You know.
Criteria 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
The variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
It contributes to public safety and anyone that travels that road, so for that reason, I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
The surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
No fair and substantial relationship existing. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
And finally, it is reasonable use. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, the criteria for
Structural 6.
Yes.
just gonna say, structural impact number 6
Right. Okay.
met its criteria.
I'll make a motion to vote on structural impact number 6 per ZBA 3.
A roll call vote, Jim?
Second.
We need a second.
I'm sorry.
I'll this is Barbara, I'll second.
Getting ahead of myself, sorry.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, structural impact 6 variance has been granted.
Okay.
Okay, structural impact number 7,
Which again.
not contrary to the public interest.
Additional guardrail, yeah.
The other side of the room.
Ms. McCarthy.
Again, it's public safety, this is guardrail, so I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria 2, the variance meets the spirit of the ordinance. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. It's all part of the protection system on the road for anybody who rides on that road.
Criteria 4, the values of surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
This particular impact abuts a parking lot, so I do not see a guardrail affecting the value of a parking lot. So for that reason, I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
No fair and substantial relationship exists between general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
And finally, the proposal is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, structural impact number 7 met its criteria.
I'll make a motion to vote on structural impact number 7 per ZBA number 3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Jim, wanted a roll call vote, please.
Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, structural impact 7 variance request has been approved.
Okay.
Now we're flipping and we're doing structural impact number 3.
Right.
Just because you asked me to keep it in page order, because we're now moving to ZBA 4.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So where is number 3?
So structural impact number 3, it would not be contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye. Again, this is retaining wall, part of preventing erosion, so I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Granting the variance would meet the spirit of the ordinance. Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
The variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Would not diminish the surrounding properties.
No, I don't think so.
Ms. McCarthy.
I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
I agree, there's an existing culvert there, and this looks to only reinforce what's already existing.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Unnecessary hardship. And yes, while I'm sitting here, I'm restructuring. If we ever do this many again, I'm going to have different paperwork in front of me. Just going to list everything in one long row. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
The proposal is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, the application for structural impact number 3 met its criteria.
ZBA 4.
A motion to take a vote on structural impact number 3 per ZBA 4.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
I apologize, I was writing. Was that Ms. McCarthy?
Oh,
It was a tie.
give it to Mary.
Thank you, John.
Jeez.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, structural impact number 3 variance has been granted.
No, it should be
The other one now.
ZBA 5.
Got it.
We're moving on to structural impact number 8.
Yeah.
Would not be contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Again, we're talking public safety, guardrails, so
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. It's just for safety purposes.
The ordinance, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree. There's wetlands that are past that, and I think the property line runs right through the, I believe the property line runs right through the wetlands, so the reality of any other structure being 200 feet to there, I think is negligible, not existent.
I will condense that as a fact. Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 3, substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. Yeah.
Criteria 3, the surrounding properties would not be devalued.
Number 4.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 4,
That was 4.
sorry, criteria 5, unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And 5.2, the proposed use is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the criteria were met for structural impact number 8.
Eight.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on structural impact number 8 per the ZBA 5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Jim.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that was granted by unanimous vote. Structural impact number 9.
We don't have.
No, drainage impact number 1.
Sorry. Sorry. Drainage impact number 1.
Keep an eye on him.
Not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. Again, this is part of our stormwater management pipes and drainage, so this is very important. I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree. This is going to be subterranean. It's not going to be visible. I don't think it's contrary to public interest at all.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria 3, substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria number 4, surrounding properties would not be diminished.
They wouldn't even know it's there.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 5, about unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And 5.1, the use is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the criteria for drainage impact number 1 have been met.
ZBA.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on drainage impact number 1 per the ZBA 5 plans.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a roll call vote, Jim.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
That is unanimously approved. Moving on to drainage impact number 2. Not contrary to the public interest.
Here. Oh, yeah, right here.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. Again, this is catch basins and drainage, very important for our stormwater management. So I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree. Yeah.
Criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria number 3, substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 4, values of surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy,
I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
The structure allows them to properly manage rainwater coming off the road and surrounding buildings, essentially contributing to not having this water infiltrate surrounding properties. So for that reason, I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
I agree.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
And the use is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, drainage number 2 application has met its criteria.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on drainage impact number 2 per ZBA 5.
Do we have a second?
Second, because we can't get a chance to be the first.
Just trying to keep it moving, just trying to keep it moving.
Was that Ms. Reardon?
No, that was me.
Oh, okay.
Miss McGarry.
Creating a little havoc here.
It's bouncing back and forth, Jim, so there's no more ties. Yeah.
The only initials I feel safe putting down are JS.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the variance application for drainage number 2 impact has met unanimously.
Thank you.
Drainage impact number 3, not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye, this is a pipe going under the road, absolutely necessary, so I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria 2, the spirit would be observed. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 3 regarding substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 4, the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is a reasonable use. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, structural impact number 3 has met its criteria.
Make a motion for drainage impact number 3, ZBA number 5.
Could we have a second?
Second.
Mary will second.
Go. A roll call vote, please. Yeah.
Good job.
Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that drainage impact number 3 variance was issued by a unanimous vote.
These are all to do with drainage, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drainage impact number 4
Yeah.
is not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy.
Again, this is a pipe under the road necessary for stormwater management, so I agree.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
I agree.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye. Yeah, thank you.
would not diminish surrounding properties.
Yeah.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Undue hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Is a reasonable use. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, drainage impact number 4 has met its criteria.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a mo-
Go ahead, Barry.
I'll make a motion that we grant the drainage impact number 4 variance on ZBA 6.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Jim, roll call vote, please.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Oh, can you speak up a little?
What did you say?
Your vote.
Can we take a vote?
No, what it was your vote.
I've called the roll. I'm waiting for your vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was daydreaming. Aye. They're having too much fun down the other end here.
See what happens when you put the girls together?
I'm putting that down as a yes.
I
Yes.
think he said yes.
Drainage impact number 5 is not contrary to the public interest.
It all fell apart when I stopped making
Ms.
the motions.
McCarthy,
Right.
Again, catch basin, stormwater management, it's very important in this particular piece of property, so I agree. That's an outlet catch basin, I believe.
Ms. Reardon,
I agree.
Ms. White,
I agree.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
I agree.
Criteria number 2 of substantial justice.
Aye. Oh,
Ms.
sorry.
McCarthy,
No, 2 is observed, isn't it?
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
We're voting on criteria number 2, just to clarify?
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Sorry, that was criteria number 3.
We're following you, we're just
We
jumping
didn't
around
do-
with you.
We
We're
didn't
with
do
you.
2 yet, did we?
Do let me know if I miss one because
She was trying to, and that's
Was
why I
trying to.
clarified.
Oh, okay. We're now on criteria number 4. And that is surrounding properties.
Well, hold
with-
on. Are we doing 2 or 3?
You did 3, we need to do 2.
We need to do 2 now, and then we can go on to 4.
Okay.
Right.
I was.
Number 2 is that it will do substantial justice.
No, number 2 is spirit of the ordinance.
My apologies, I didn't flip back far enough. Spirit of the ordinance.
We're all in this together, guys. We'll get this
We
done.
are. We'll get it done. We might be here for breakfast, but we'll get it done.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Now we're moving to number 4. And that is surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 5, unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And 5.2, which is useful purpose. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, drainage impact number 5.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on drainage impact number 5 per ZBA number 6 plans.
Do we have a second, ladies?
I'll second. This is
Oh,
Barbara.
let Barbara do it.
Roll call vote, Jim.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Number 6, right?
Drainage impact number 6. Criteria 1, not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. Again, we're still dealing with pipes and stormwater management, so aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 3, regarding substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 4, surrounding properties would not be adversely affected. Values would not be adversely affected. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 5 on hardship, unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is a reasonable one? Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, drainage number 6.
I make a motion to approve drain impact number 6 on ZBA number 6.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Jim.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that was unanimous.
This is,
Drainage impact number 7, not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
aye.
Criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 3, granting would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
I'd like to just note that a lot of the reasons why we're accepting these were already stated for very, very, very similar applications, subterranean pipes, manhole covers, that things of that nature. So for that reason, I'm saying I agree.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria number 4, surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 5, unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is reasonable because Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, drainage number 7.
Your turn, John.
So have a motion.
I'll make a motion to vote on drainage impact number 7 per ZBA 6.
Do I have a second?
Go ahead, Mary.
Actually, that's
I'll second. This is Barbara.
Okay.
A roll call vote, Jim.
Okay, Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that was unanimous.
Yeah.
Drainage number 8.
What'd you have there? Was that what that little circle is, manhole cover? I didn't know what that was. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Drainage number 8, not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Again, this is another catch basin, so aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
The spirit would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
The variance would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Surrounding properties would not be diminished in value. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak,
Aye.
and is a reasonable use. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the criteria for the application for drainage number 8 has met its criteria.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Drainage Impact 8, ZBA 7.
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Jim?
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Drainage impact 9. Is not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. This is another pipe going under the road, so aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Thank you.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Substantial hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is a reasonable use. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the criteria for variance for drainage 9 met its criteria.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a,
Okay.
I'll make a
Ma'am.
motion to grant the variance for drainage impact number 9 on ZBA 7.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Jim.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Is that it?
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Okay.
Ms. White,
Almost there.
Aye.
So, yeah.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
There are 2 more.
Yep. Both drainage.
Yes, it is 11.
Yeah. and there's two right here. Yeah. Yes.
I was looking at the house, I got that.
Yeah.
Drainage impact number 10 is not contrary to the public interest. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. Again, this is another catch basin outlet.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Would do substantial justice.
Nope.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Are we on number 2, spirit
is
of the
3.
ordinance?
This is 3.
We're on number 2.
my apologies. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed.
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Do we have?
Aye. I'm voting aye, too.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I said Ms. Reardon. And Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Figured I'd better double check everybody. Number 3, substantial justice would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
There would be no diminishment of surrounding properties. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is a reasonable one. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, variance request for drainage number 10 has met its criteria.
Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve drainage impact 10 ZBA 8.
Do I have a second?
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have 2
She
seconds.
beat me to the motion.
Ms. Reardon, got it.
Okay.
Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
White,
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak,
Aye.
and drainage number 11. Not contrary to the public interest. Drainage impact number 11, Ms. McCarthy,
Aye. Again, this is another pipe under the road.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Would do substantial justice. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
The values of surrounding properties would not be diminished. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Unnecessary hardship. Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Ms. White. Ms. White. She's still on Zoom.
Did we lose her?
Okay. Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
And is a reasonable use.
Can you see her name up there?
Oh, it
Yeah, she's
is.
been-
However, she's muted.
She's been muting and unmuting herself, so, and now she's dropped, so
okay.
she had an error.
Okay.
Okay.
Almost made it.
Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the criteria for drainage 11 variance has been met criteria.
Barbara wanted to do
Someone
one,
let-
but if she's not on. Go ahead. She said she wanted to do one, but I think we lost her, so go ahead.
Make a motion, someone?
I'll motion for drainage impact number 11 per ZBA number 8.
I'll second.
Jim, a vote, please.
Ms. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Reardon.
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that was approved unanimously.
Thank you.
On behalf of myself and the applicant, I just want to thank the board for the time and energy we've all put into this. I know for some of us it's been years and we're working, but thank you all for helping us to get through this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the
Before we
better
go
one.
any further,
Yeah.
Mr. Hamel, did I miss any? Did I miss any? Okay. Well, I don't want somebody coming back next week going criteria 4
No,
on
I
number
kept score.
I kept score
5
after the
was.
first.
We all did, yeah.
Thank you. Good night now.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bless you for staying all night.
Jim, round of applause. Jim did a hell of a job.
Yeah, kudos, Jim.
Great job.
Still shorter than last month.
Pardon?
Still shorter than last month.
Yes.
Welcome back, Mr. Hamel.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So who did I put in your place, Miss Reardon?
See, Tom?
Miss Reardon, you're back to an alternate.
Well,
back to an
technically,
Oh, she's not, oh.
so I think we should appoint.
Yep, I'll point you out.
Yeah. Ms.
Miss
Reardon
Reardon,
can
yes.
now be Mr. Gibbs.
That's correct, excuse me. She's
My, how
happy
you've
about that.
changed.
So now I missed the Gibbs.
And now I'm Mr. Gibbs.
Looking
All
like
I
Mr.
wanted was
Phelps.
one motion, and now I'm Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah. Okay,
The secretary.
let's see, what do we have left here to get done tonight?
Well, Jim has to read the meeting minutes from last month.
Yep, does any, right, yeah, does anybody have any questions or changes to the
Nope.
minutes?
Please note, I sent out a fresh version
No.
of them because I had Ms. White instead of Ms. Reardon asking a question, and somehow or other I ended up with like 3/4 of a page that I duplicated.
Oh, boy.
I do wish you had sent them in advance.
So does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Everybody read it.
First of all, we need a motion to approve. a second, and then we'll make comments.
Okay.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Could I have a second here, please?
Second,
Jim, a vote?
No,
Oh.
on what is, I think page 22, because you didn't number them.
Yeah, mine,
Yeah, they're
mine are numbered.
They're numbered on the bottom.
Yeah, on the bottom,
Okay.
yeah.
So it is page 22,
Yep.
where there's a paragraph that starts, Mr. Him. It goes 6 lines of what I said, and then without punctuation or anything else, goes into the response by Mr. Teasley.
Okay, page 22.
the last word of yours.
So is the rest of your comment missing?
No, basically, my comment was only, this is what, later.
Oh, okay, I did, that, okay. Now I get what you mean.
This was later in my, this wasn't my prepared statement, this was a,
No. I now understand what you mean, is that I ran 2 paragraphs together and didn't put, Mr.
put a space and say, Mr. Teasley said, is missing. Between where I stopped talking and he started talking.
So what was your last word, Roger?
Denied.
Okay.
On the,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first word in the 5th line.
right.
Deny.
That's
Okay.
where I stopped. And then
Okay.
he picks up Mr. Teasley in the middle of a sentence.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Actually, now, oh yeah, so, well, see, this is the ones that you sent, not the corrected ones. So on that page 24, you have Kathleen Boudreau, it's Mark Boudreau.
It's,
His name is Mark, not Kathleen.
I listened to it, I went, that's a man's name. I looked it up on the property card and it only listed a woman's name.
No, he's Mark.
Okay. These are all Scrivener's notes. These are not errors in the minutes. These are just,
And page 26, Caroline Podlinski is, her name is not that. Her first name is K-A-A-R-I-N. Her last name is S-Y-V-A-N-S-K-I.
okay, that's something that wasn't on the property card and I,
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
My other comment is the first hour and a half of the meeting covers 27 pages.
yes.
of, basically edited transcript.
Exactly.
Then the next 4 pages covers the next hour and a half of discussion. And I think that really you ended up with too much detail during the public hearing and not nearly enough detail in the deliberation. There is very little detail of that in that deliberation.
I will give you that. However, during deliberations, quite honestly, there are large swaths, if you listen to the tape, just where I can't tell who is talking. During the public hearing,
Just assume it was always me.
well, also the public hearing needs sort of a transcript. When you get to the deliberation, quite honestly, I made it early in, I made a mistake and put Ms. White instead of Ms. Reardon because in looking at the screen, not seeing right now what I normally see, Ms. White had said something, her little image popped, the thing that said Barbara White popped up. However, Ms. Reardon is talking in the background And I went, oh, that's Ms. White speaking. It gets a little confusing. When you get to deliberations at that night, I had no way of distinguishing what individuals were specifically saying. So when I do get to use a transcription process. There's just, quite honestly, you cannot go through that and pick out.
Right.
You might pick out something that Ms. McCarthy says, but you get half a sentence of that, then 2 words that people talk, when people talk over each other, you
Right.
cannot break it down.
Yeah, well, that's something I think we probably should address as a board. You know, when, if somebody gets out of line and we have to start jumbling, we're going to have to calm down and
Yeah.
I never do
Can
that. So.
we get Jack a gavel?
Right.
Or Jim?
Yeah.
A gavel?
Yeah.
I will say this, Mr. Hamel, I do my best to try to get everything in there that I can.
You do.
And try to point in, when you reach deliberation, I go through and I listen for key words that go into certain categories, so that I made sure that it mentions that, you know, you covered a certain grouping of areas. And as I picked up something else that fit into a group, I went back and added it to that level of discussion. But to try to get the Michigas.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not looking for transcript, but I think it didn't well enough give the whole flavor of that deliberation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, no, that's not a thing. Not a thing wrong with it.
And one more really picky thing, on page 32, you spelled my name wrong.
Believe it or not, that's the hardest one for me to believe. Whoa, okay. Most of those are Scrivener's notes. You know, basically typos.
But actually, my last name, and especially if you're doing that, is very hard to spell. Because there's lots of different ways you can do it. After the first 3 letters, there can be 1 or 2 M's, there can be E's or I's, or L's or blah, 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 all combinations.
I'm afraid to ask, what did I,
You did it H-I-M-I-L-L.
oh,
Maybe you should think about changing the way you spell your name, Roger.
and that's on what, page 32?
Yep.
Okay.
And then on page 22, you're just missing a period. The first paragraph.
Oh, trust me, if you go through the first 20-something pages and,
Jim,
but
you
many
didn't
people,
capitalize the A over here.
many people, especially attorneys and engineers, talk in one run-on sentence.
Guilty.
And if I were to spend the time to try to make, the other thing is, if you notice, most of it is in first person. I start, Mr. Hamel said he would like to do something, and then as he continues on, it turns into first person, because I can't honestly translate the entire. However, if they go before a court, it's the public hearing aspect that a judge is going to read more than anything else. So I give you minutes that will stand up in court without them taking another 20 hours.
Makes sense. to
And
me.
you've, actually, that was the largest set of minutes that I did in this past year. However, I'm thinking of taking the minutes from the ZBA and having them bound. Should be a book about 1.5 inches thick. Now, just in order to give it as complete as possible on the public hearing, I put in as much as I can. As far as getting people to not talk over each other or not say, yeah, by the way, Mr. Sylvia, I left out all the ums.
Appreciate that.
If I left,
I mean, I was going to call you out on that,
No,
but
no, no.
Mr. Hamill beat you up enough. I didn't want to.
no. If I left in all the ums, and you're not the person who does it, if I left in all the ums, ahs, yas, you'd have twice as many pages. With that set of minutes, because the first thing I do is edit out all those words, I took out over 1,000, I call them fillers.
All right. So are we accepting the minutes, or?
Are we going to accept the
Yes,
minutes?
I will make those Scrivener corrections
Okay.
for Mr. Hamill without necessarily having to list them in the minutes.
So,
So,
I'm waiting
You're-
I'll
already made
approve
the
the
motion.
minutes
Ms.
as amended.
I already made the motion. so we
Ms.
just
Reardon
need-
seconded, Mr. Sylvia moved to accept the minutes. Ms. McCarthy,
Now I'm really confused. Aye. What am I doing?
for the minutes.
To accept
So
the
are we
minutes.
accepting them as amended, whatever you're going to do?
Based on the changes
those
discussed.
are Scrivener's,
All right. So yes, I accept. I
okay.
mean, yes, whatever.
Yeah, the Scrivener's errors don't need to be listed in the
Okay.
minutes. Those are just things
I
that I'll
think you
go
did a great
back
job.
and. Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Mr. Hamill. No. Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
That's 4-1.
John, you're having too much fun
Can I
over
assume, Mr. Hamill, that you
Overtired.
want those listed in the set of, this set of minutes?
My thing is, I believe they're lacking in the amount of coverage in the deliberative portion of the meeting.
Okay.
And 4 people said that's fine, and that's good enough.
Okay. No, I was just trying to make sure I got,
You know,
I think you got the content, and I think sometimes too much.
yeah, right, the public hearing piece, I think, was too much, but that's.
Yeah. And then you worry about that because then you have somebody that looks at it and says, well, I talked, and that, they hardly mentioned me. So I get why he had more detail on that,
and I do leave out certain asides and what have you.
Okay. Good.
Let's move on.
That 4-1, that passed.
Yeah. Has everybody had a chance to look at the escrow expense manifest?
Did you correct,
Yes, I removed the 10 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
make a motion to pay the escrow manifest for $129.96?
Second.
All those in favor? I'm sorry.
I have a question about the manifest. It said 14 Wilders Grove. It said 14 Wilders Grove for
Instead
the
of one?
cards. Isn't it 1A?
No, it's Lot 1A.
Oh, okay.
Their actual address.
Address?
I took it off the application.
Oh,
is
okay. I
14
thought the
is
application said
14.
1A.
I did too. Okay.
Yeah, it's lot, theirs is,
There's lot 35-1, the drafts is 1A according to this plan.
Well, according to the plan.
Which plan?
Yeah, right. Which one?
I apologize.
The 3 I have.
It is 1A.
Okay.
I read 1A as 14. No, they use on their application, the font is just, I looked at it and, okay. Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
Aye.
Mr. Hamel, Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Do we need to adopt the calendar that he provided us with?
Yes.
Motion to adopt the
23.
2023 calendar as most recently amended.
Second.
The one that you sent in the package was different than the one in the email.
Right,
It's only 3 dates on the bottom.
It's a couple of numbers.
Yeah.
Couple of numbers.
the formula on my template turned out to be corrupt. Okay, Ms. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Reardon,
I did.
Aye.
Think.
Mr. Hamel, Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye. Is there any other new business or anything we haven't handled tonight?
No.
Okay. Anybody have anything to bring up? Okay.
Just
We're
could I
adjourned.
have Jim, could I have a copy of this new map for?
Yes, I'll make those after the meeting.
We adjourned at 9:50 PM. Well, thank you, everybody. I'd like to give a round of applause to Jim. That was something that since I've been on the board,